Cora was there wrapping a vase thick in a swaddle of newspaper. This one was on its way to Vermont. I just sold it. Great, said Tom. Then want to introduce Bat to the joys of pot throwing? For a minute, Bat imagined the three of them picking up pots from their shelves and throwing them against the walls, hearing them shatter in his imagination. Cora must have seen the concern on his face because she quickly said, throwing a pot is just another way of saying making a pot on a wheel. It's fun, even if it is sort of sticky and slimy. Do you want to try? Actually, Bat would have preferred to go home or go to Mom's vet clinic or even go back to Mr. Grayson's classroom. But he couldn't go any of those places, not right now. He had to wait. So he sat down at the potter's wheel. Okay, he said. Outstanding, said Tom. First the clay. First the clay, Cora repeated, and she brought out a large plastic-wrapped cube of clay from under the counter. She peeled back the plastic and picked up a piece of wire with a wooden handle attached to each end. She held the wire against the cube and pulled it through, shaving off a layer of clay. She set it aside and rewrapped the cube of plastic. Then she held out the clay to Bat. Squish it into a ball, she said. Squeeze it hard to get out all the air bubbles. Bat hesitated, but finally he held out his hand and let Cora place the clay into it. It was cool, almost cold and damp. He folded it in his hands and squeezed, forming a rough ball. His hands turned a dusty gray and dried white. He squeezed and squeezed. Great, said Tom. Now slam it down hard. Just throw it down, right there on the wheel. Bat did. The whack went the clay against the wheel, flattening out into a satisfying way. Again, Cora said. So Bat picked up the clay and reformed it into a ball, and he threw it a second time. Tom took a turn throwing and slapping it, and Cora pronounced it ready. Okay, said Cora, throw it one more time, and this time try to aim right for the center of the wheel. Bat threw the clay. Perfect, Cora said. Now Tom will help keep the wheel spinning so you don't have to worry about that. I'll help you keep the clay wet. You just cup your hands around the clay gently but firmly, like you're holding on to something precious, okay? I'll pretend I'm holding Thor, said Bat, my skunk kit. Great idea, Cora said. Ready? Bat nodded. He cupped his hands around the clay lump. Beside him, Tom stepped gently on the foot pedal and the wheel began to spin. Cora took a cup of water and poured it slowly and steadily, streaming over Bat's hands onto the clay. Good, Cora said. Push the clay down and in, down and in. Don't worry if it squishes through your fingers, that's fine. Wet clay oozed out from between each of Bat's fingers, and it was gooey feeling, but not bad. Kind of interesting, actually. Bat watched the clay spinning and spinning. It felt in fast little circles. He watched the clay pushing out between his fingers. He felt almost hypnotized by the sensation of the slippery, wet clay in his hands. So there's two new words, hypnotized and sensation. I want you to think about those two words and think about what they might mean. Spinning and spinning, the challenge of holding it just right between his fingers and thumbs, not too loosely or it would wobble out of control, not too tightly or the emerging bowl would smush on its sides. But then he could feel the clay beginning to shift off center. It was falling to the side, and he tried to push it back onto the center of the wheel, but it seemed like it was harder. The harder he pushed, the worse it got, and then the clay went into a ball. It wasn't in a ball anymore. It was a weird floppy tube, and it was twisting and falling, and then he yelled, "It's breaking!" and flicks of clay splattered in his face. Tom took his foot off the pedal, and the wheel slowed and then stopped. "You did it," he said, grinning. "No, I didn't," said Bat. "I made a mess." "Mess is the beginning of art," Cora said. She was smiling too. "Do you want to go again?" "Yes," said Bat. "Yes, please." That's where we're going to stop for today. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this portion of our story. Love you.